Hello, fabulous friends and fans. Welcome to the Jupiter Special Horoscope for Jupiter in Libra from September 2016 right to October 2017. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. Jupiter moving into the sign of Libra is huge, and not only because of what Jupiter moving into Libra itself represents, but also because of the powerful conversations that Jupiter will be setting off in the sky. Now, I don't say this lightly. This is really energy that can change lives, that can transform countries, and even change the world for the better. There's lots of power moves being made and shifts being had within ourselves, but particularly where it comes to our relationships. So Libra is the sign of partnerships. It's the sign of marriage, yes, but it's also a sign of all kinds of partnerships. It's where we are one-on-one with another person working as equals. It is also the sign of diplomacy. So again, it's about hearing somebody out and reaching for harmony. It's a very harmonious kind of energy as well. Now, Jupiter will be speaking with Pluto and speaking with Uranus and speaking with Saturn as well. In fact, playing an intimate part in a larger conversation, an especially rare conversation taking place between Uranus and Saturn that's going to start late 2016, but really be a dominant player in 2017. So let's take it one step at a time. Let's go through the year and look at what all this wonderful energy is going to mean for us. Now, the thing about wonderful energy is sometimes in order to really tap into what could be so wonderful, it means that we have to recognize where maybe some change really has got to happen. The consequences of not making a change outweigh keeping things the way that they are or just going along unconsciously. And if anything, if these planets are saying anything, unconsciousness is not really going to work with this kind of sky. So one of the first things that Jupiter is going to do as Jupiter steps into this new sign, and really before September is over, we'll meet the sun in the sky and then rush towards a new moon. Well, there will be a new moon that takes place in the sign of Libra, and we'll be feeling this energy right as we begin October. And it's going to be this late September, beginning of October period that is especially going to reveal to us all that can be good about what is coming up ahead. And this should be a time when the potential blessings start to become very clear to us. We'll start to notice a shift in blessings, which is what happens when Jupiter changes signs. And it becomes a time when we start to notice that, okay, where before the energy was changing in healthy ways, yes, allowing healthy closures, which is part of what Jupiter is about, but also hope and belief and real expansion, more opportunities showing up as well. Very much part of what Jupiter represents. And so wherever it is that we've been experiencing that over the course of the year before this move of Jupiter, as Jupiter changes signs very quickly, and especially right around this time frame, the universe starts highlighting for us, this is where change can happen, and this is where things can get really good. So it starts to plant the seeds of faith, but it starts to initiate that change of blessings so that we can start to experience greater and greater things, better and better things in a new area of life. Now that depends a lot on your own sign, your sun sign, your rising sign, your moon sign. All are going to play a part in that. And that is for the horoscopes, right? So of course there's special Jupiter horoscopes for each sign as well. But when we look at it from a collective perspective, one thing I will say, having Jupiter and the sun and a new moon taking place in the sign of marriage makes this a great time, just traditionally speaking, right? Very textbook astrology. It's a good omen under which to get married. So if you've been planning a wedding or thinking about that's something that you want to do, this is a really great time frame to do that in the very early fall. That is a great time frame, particularly once the new moon arrives, particularly once we start October, the early days of October in particular. And that is because whenever you get married, or start a new agreement with somebody, a new partnership with someone, ideally you want the moon to be growing. You want it to be waxing because you want the love and the affection between the two of you to grow. And that's what the moon represents. So that's a good way to use astrology, right? To use astrology to your advantage. So we have this happening. There's all kinds of hope in the air. There's all kind of possibility as well. And then Jupiter moves along. And as Jupiter moves further into the fall, and especially as we move to the middle and late fall, this is where we're going to start feeling Jupiter speaking with these other power players, beginning conversations with these other power players in the sky. And it starts with Pluto. So Jupiter speaking with Pluto can make for an interesting conversation. And, you know, I'm always going to be very direct with you. I'm always going to be straightforward with you guys. As I look at this conversation, this is Pluto in Capricorn is sort of power, if you will, right? It is the structural powers out there. And then you've got this very diplomatic, very gracious energy being magnified by Jupiter. Well, these two planets are going to be speaking in a conversation that's going to show us where it is that a more gracious approach, a more diplomatic approach, a more fair and just approach needs to happen. So this ultimately says to me an awareness of where justice needs to come about and how we can make that happen. So sometimes with this given energy, what tends to happen, if we have to become aware that justice is not happening, and if we have to become aware that we need to have a more diplomatic or more gracious approach, or maybe just the justice system, which is very much symbolic of this particular conversation. If the justice system is not fair, this can bring with it at least one sort of example, if you will, that a lot of us are paying attention to as a representative of where it is that change needs to happen. What's really great though is that it doesn't stay there. That's what I find especially encouraging about this energy. It doesn't just stay there, but Jupiter moves on and begins to activate that rare conversation taking place that's going to kick into gear between Uranus and Saturn. Now, whenever Uranus and Saturn speak, it represents a breakthrough in equality. Between those two planets, it tends to be, there's the way that things have always been done, the traditional way of doing things, which is Saturn. And then Uranus is about the future. It's about equality. It's about breaking through what we have known before. And whenever these two planets speak, there tends to be some move towards, whether it is in policy, whether it is in our collective decisions and what we're focusing on, there tends to be some demonstration, some obvious demonstration in the world of where it is that we all are moving towards a greater sense of human rights in particular. And this happens around the world that we see this, but particularly in policy, in elected leaders, we see this as well. And in corporations and in governments, we see ourselves moving towards a greater sense of things evening out, if you will. So I'm reminded of, I'll give you an example, back in 2008, Uranus and Saturn were speaking, and they were standing across each other in the sky during the election in late 2008, and during inauguration as well. These planets were still speaking over an extended period of time during the inauguration in early 2009 of President Barack Obama. So for those of you who remember back in the day in 2008, that time there was this very hopeful, very high energy, this energy like, wow, my God, there's this new breakthrough. There's this new way that things can happen now. And that was sort of the feeling and the energy of the people at the time. And it was like what was not believable, all of a sudden, boom, glass ceiling shattered. It was that kind of feeling. When Saturn and Uranus speak in supreme harmony, as they will now, the breakthroughs will be there, the shattering of glass ceilings, as they say, will happen. but there will be a certain ease with which it takes place. There won't be that sense of unbelievability, but rather a naturalness, a feeling like, okay, this should be happening now. It's right for this to take place now. What's different is that Jupiter will also be involved in this conversation. Jupiter will be standing across from Uranus, and Jupiter will be speaking in harmony with Saturn. So they'll be setting up this harmonious configuration between the three planets. Now, if you want to learn more about Jupiter speaking with Uranus in particular, there's a really great book and great interview as well that you can watch that I did with Dr. Richard Tarnas, who wrote Cosmos and Psyche. And that book is an amazing exploration of the things that have come about for us culturally and also individually in people's lives as well, whenever Uranus is triggered and in the different ways that Uranus is triggered. So you may want to check that out. But as I look at this, I'm seeing, yes, the breakthroughs are happening. I'm seeing Jupiter providing a very supportive role to this particular configuration. And if you want to learn more just about that configuration, especially, you may want to watch the most recent Saturn special horoscopes that I put up a couple of years ago, and you can see that on my YouTube channel, of course. And if you watch the introduction, I talk about this particular conversation quite a bit. So I've been saying now for a couple of years that it is going to be late 2016 and several points in 2017 that we are going to see these sort of statements and developments that take place that allow all of us to feel like progress is possible. On a world level, especially, we should see this, and around the world at that. So having Jupiter involved, well, this shows us a few things. Jupiter in the sign of Libra, diplomacy, fairness, balanced perspectives, gracious approaches, all of this becomes part of how it is that we move forward. There's also something to be said for patience as well. So as I see this, right, it's very, it's sort of like I'm breaking down the astrologer's process here, right? Jupiter speaking with Pluto. So that does suggest this, you know, very obvious need for diplomacy, very obvious need for justice even as well. And a conversation about how is that going to happen, and feeling the need for that to take place, and feeling hopeful that that can take place as well. And then we move forward and the breakthroughs start to happen. Progress starts to take place, and we start to notice structural changes. We start to notice changes in what has always been, an understanding that we aren't what we've always been. We're now moving in new directions. We're evolving as a collective around the world, around societies, and around countries as well. And this can also be reflected in relationships between countries. And that's a lot of what Jupiter moving into Libra is about as well. Because as I said, it's diplomacy. It's what role are different countries going to play in helping to facilitate positive outcomes in different countries around the world, right? So it's just like the relationships that take place between people, you know, like if you're in a family, which is kind of like what we are on the planet, right? We're like a big family. So if you're in a family and you're all hanging out together, and there's some people who got a problem and they're upstairs in one of the bedrooms, and you know, they're having their issues. Someone's standing outside the door, someone's in the door. Well, what are the other family members going to do? How are they going to approach it? How are they going to be part of facilitating healing? How are they going to be part of facilitating movement forward, movement towards evolution? All of that is highlighted under this energy. And as much as there is that energy there of a call for justice because of what looks not just, at the same time, there's tremendous promise for breakthroughs and momentum, and a real sense that all of us are moving forward in a very positive direction. On a personal level, this energy says a few things to me. One is, in your own life, wherever it is that you have allowed yourself to sort of be dictated by certain structures, or in particular, you know, it's always interesting to me. I see how, like, a lot of times I think we internalize different messages about what it means to be a good daughter, a good parent, a good son, a good member of society, right? We take on all these roles, maybe go into different educational processes or certain jobs, whatever the case may be, get married, have kids, whatever the case may be. And we take on these different messages about what it means to be good. And we try to prove to ourselves that we can be good. But the thing is that it's one thing to be good, it's another to be at peace with yourself. And that's how I see this particular conversation, and especially Jupiter moving through the sign of Libra, is promising us that we are going to start to get insights in our own life, especially through things changing in a particular area of life where Jupiter now moves to, as Jupiter moves into the sign of Libra. We each are going to get insights into where is it that being good is one thing, and that's great, but then there's also being at peace with yourself, right? It's one thing to be good based on some, messages we pick up at an early age. It's another thing to be a good person, to be a decent person, to be a just person, to be kind in all our interactions, to be fair with other people in all our interactions and in our smallest interactions. And to understand that regardless of where you are in whatever social location you find yourself in, really there's no difference, and especially in how you treat people, really should not be a difference between you interacting with someone you consider your peer and someone that maybe you don't consider your peer. So I'm reminded of, I gotta say, this is coming to mind, it's said a lot, it's almost cliche, but they say, when you go out with somebody on a first date or something, what you want to do is watch how they treat the waiter, right? You want to watch how are they treating the servers, how are they treating the people who are assisting them, because that's going to tell you tremendous amount about their character, who that person really is. Because especially in the beginning, you are on your best behavior. Especially when you're just getting to know somebody, you are totally on your best behavior. But people give themselves away. And especially if you just watch somebody and how they're treating other people, regardless of their perceived social status, that speaks volumes about what you can expect, not necessarily in the moment, but what you can expect like, a month down the road or a year down the road or 10 years down the road. And so that is the kind of conversation I think we're going to have as a collective, but also that's going to be where our learning opportunity is. It's not just about you seeing how this person that you're getting to know is acting, but also you seeing yourself. How are you acting? Are you understanding that really on a very important level, on the only level that really matters, we are all exactly the same. Like we're all equal. We're all loved. We're all here together. How much are you able to understand that and to embrace that? How much are you able to interact with other people with that appreciation obvious at the forefront? Or how much do you put it behind or not necessarily want to readily acknowledge it? Or how much do you forget it when you interact with people, regardless of the situations? And that doesn't just mean you think that you're higher, or that one person thinks that they're higher than another, but also if you are perceiving that someone is elevated to you, someone is a higher position to you, what does that say about how you're interacting with that person? Is it a balanced interaction in that case? So this is going to be something that all of us are considering and talking about, and also in our own lives as well. Wherever Jupiter goes, we will be seeking balance. We will be seeking harmony. This is a super harmonious type of energy as well. And so we will be seeking that sense of harmony as well. So especially when Jupiter moves into an area of life that might have felt a little bit not balanced, a little bit, in some cases, even a little bit out of whack, this is going to bring that healing balm, and Jupiter moving into the sign of Libra will be that much more obvious, that much more notable. But overall, what's really great about this is that Jupiter moving into the sign of Libra is about healing relationships. And really that is one of the most fundamental parts of being a human being. We have our relationships with others, our one-on-one relationships. And then we have our relationships on a larger kind of macro level with countries and cultures. And then we have our relationship to different parts of ourselves and the different roles we hold. You're not going to be the same way with your mom as you might be when you're, hanging out at the club. It depends on your relationship with your mom, but for the most part, some of us, a lot of us actually, we do have different ways of interacting with different people in different contexts. And all of that, it's not like you're wearing a mask and not being true to yourself, but that all of that is a part of you. All of these are facets of you, because really all of us can be all things. And what I mean by that is what we may otherwise reject about ourselves, actually it's somewhere in there as well, because that spectrum of the human experience, as astrology teaches us, all those archetypal energies that are out there are really a part of everyone and everything, and that includes you as well. So finding peace with those different parts of you as an individual, with our own individual selves, is part of the promise of Jupiter in Libra. I, for one, am super excited about this energy because of the progress it promises. If you've been waiting for a change, if you've been feeling like life has been stagnant in an area of life and you really want things to start moving forward, if you've been waiting to get it, the proverbial get it, or you've been waiting to make a shift, you're on the precipice and that shift is ready to take place, Jupiter will be working overtime. And its conversations with other power players out there will be working overtime to help you to make positive changes in your life, integrated changes in your life that move you towards a greater feeling of harmony with yourself and with others. Thank you so much for watching the introduction to the Jupiter Special Horoscopes. I'm so excited about Jupiter moving to the sign of Libra. I think it's going to be amazing for all of us, a real sense of progress. Now, if you want to have instant access to the horoscope for your sign, for your sun sign, for your moon sign, for your rising sign, and if you want early access, instant access to those special Jupiter horoscopes, you can head on over to my website, nadiyashah.com, to make that happen. Those horoscopes will be published on YouTube to the public in the month of September to celebrate Jupiter's move into the sign of Libra. But if you want that preview, if you want that early access, if you want to get your hands on that right now, we can absolutely make that happen. So please head over to my website, nadiyashah.com. And of course, I'll be here. I'm here every week. I'm here every month. And it is what I love to do. I love to talk astrology. I've been talking astrology my whole life, I think. Really, one of the earliest things I remember talking about is the sky. And to get to do that is just an absolute joy. So thank you so much for being here. As you know, everything I do in the world is about affirming that the universe is wise and loving. The universe is wise and loving. That is the reason that I do what I do. And my hope is with these videos and with everything that you see, it in some way reminds you of that truth. Some way, right now, in your life, and as it's playing out, you are being asked, you are being encouraged to use your exact circumstances to move yourself towards greater love and greater wisdom. And the great thing with Jupiter is you do that in ways that tend to be more enjoyable and that tend to be more consciously hopeful, more consciously grateful, and more consciously cultivating a feeling of enthusiasm as you move forward. So I hope these horoscopes infuse your life with hope, with inspiration, and just positive energy all around. Thank you so much once again. Until we connect again, take care.